Welcome to this final video in our Creating an Effective Workforce Plan program. This is step 10. It's about creating personal development plans for your team members. So you remember that up to date we've sort of developed a planning model, we've analysed it to pull out some sort of strategies and actions around attraction and retention and other things we need to be aware of. We've then, step 8, we developed some role profiles, we then created a recruiting plan. Well, now I want you to think about taking those role profiles and converting them into personal development plans for your team. Quite a simple process. First thing is we need to define the role profile we're going to assess them against, and from that role profile pull the skill sets out that we need. So remember, we're assessing individuals against role profiles, so you may want to think about the ones that are in your development plan. So in your workforce planning model, they'll be the ones in the succession 1 and succession 2 columns, and even in the emergency column, the emergency cover column. So you may want to look at some of those role profiles and helping you define the skill sets. And for ones in your development plan, like in the succession columns, I would be comparing them against the role profile that you'd like them to aspire to in the future. Once you've got that role profile, pull the skill sets out, then you can assess the individuals against those skill sets and then map the gaps. So obviously they're going to need to do more training in the areas where they've got the biggest gaps. Once you've identified the gaps in the training areas, then we can identify the training and development options. So there's a range of different options there, and then you pull that together into a bit of a plan. Now we've given you a template for that. It's in the PowerPoint workforce plan template, and you can set up one of these for each individual in your business. Now it's quite a simple process. So what we do is, training needs for Russell Cummings. The comparison profile is, let's say, marketing manager. That's where you aspire to see me at. You go to that marketing manager profile and you start to pull out the skill sets. So you can look at the competencies that you may have developed as part of developing that role profile, or simply look across the activities and map out what you think are the key skill areas there that you're going to need to focus on. Once you've got those skill areas identified, then you assess that individual about where they are now against each skill set. My recommendation is that you score them out of 10 and you just quickly run down. In this area there are 7, in this area there are 3, in this area there are 4, in this one there are 7, this one are an 8. Just score them out, okay? Where you think they are now. Then you sit down again, same process, but you sit down again and say, where do they need to be? And let's say it's in 1, 2 or 3 years time. Where would I like that person to be? And then you score them where they need to be. Now remember, not everybody needs to be a 10 in every area, okay? You may score me a 7 now in a particular area and then decide, look, actually in 3 or 4 years time, if he's still a 7 or an 8 in that area, then I'll be pretty happy. So that's sort of a maintenance program, whereas in another area it might be a 3 and you say, gee, he really needs to be a 9 in that area, he needs to be pretty damn good at it. So do that. Once you've calculated the now and the where scores, then it's quite a simple matter of working out the gap between where you are now and where you need to be. So take the where score, subtract the now score from it, and you should end up with a gap. All right, so we then just pick the gaps that are the biggest. So we pick the 3 or 4 skills areas that have the biggest gaps, and they become then your key training needs. You then go and do some research into what resources are available to meet those needs. Google will be your friend here. Okay, so it'll give you some lots of information, but don't forget to look at local TAFE colleges and training organisations and consulting groups around the place can provide you with a whole heap of these skills. So you might find there's a whole range of resources that are available. They may range from certificate 3 or 4 programs, some of the online training programs, so that Mindshop have got. You might ask me to build a custom program for the person, custom training program like this style of program for your people. You may just decide that there's a whole series of short courses that they could do. Maybe it's an online training program from somewhere else. Maybe it's webinars. Maybe it's a whole range of things. So have a look around and find out what resources are available. and then create a recommendation from those. Okay, so my recommendation is that, you know, Fred completes the certificate for in blah blah blah. You know, that Mary attends the, you know, the 2-day workshop program run by Tony Robbins. I don't know. Anyway, so just map out your training needs there. Get that all mapped out. Now, good idea is to get your team to do this for you. So you're not sitting down doing thousands of training needs thing. Tell them the role profile. Ask them to pull out the skill sets that they think are important. Do the assessments of themselves. Calculate the gaps. Identify the training needs. Find the resources and make a recommendation. You can then, you know, cross-check that. Now you may want to have some air gaps in there, so you say, right, well, look, come back to me when you've done your skills gap, and let's talk about that when you've identified your key training needs, before you go off and waste a heap of time finding resources. So that's a great way to get the team involved and team engaged in their own process. And they should be discussing these sorts of things with their managers or whoever in the business that's important. Now remember that training is one of those things that's really easy to say, I need all this training. So make sure it does relate back to your strategic plan, and that's the whole point of the workforce plan, is to understand what things need to relate back. Make sure it's within your budget, both for time and cost, because it's really easy to spend a lot of money on training, and make sure you're getting a real return on that investment. So if you're going to put some time into training, make sure it's the right training so you get a great return on investment out of the time and the money you're going to spend. Also, make sure that people are realistic in the amount of time it's going to take to build these skills. You know, most people are relatively busy in their job. You'd say they're time poor in their job, and even with the best intentions, they really don't have a lot of time to put into training. So, you know, make sure that their aspirations and your plans for them are realistic and fit with their current workload, or you're going to have to work out how you can free them up to give them some time to do some of this training. If it's really important, you'll need to free them up. That may mean you need to go back to your workforce plan and maybe put on some additional resources and able to free up some capacity for your people to go and do training. Okay, so make sure you think this through from a holistic point of view, just not from an individual point of view, and think about the business's needs most importantly as part of the process for doing this. Okay, so that's a simple training needs analysis. As I said, obviously you do this for all your senior people, certainly all your people in your development program, to make sure that you've mapped out their training needs and help them assess where they are and where they need to be. All right, so that's the workforce planning process that we use. From it, you should have a couple of organisational charts for the current and the future. You should have a workforce planning model for your business. You should have a series of position descriptions. You can also add KPIs to those if you want to when you get down to individuals. You should have individual development plans that you've built from those position descriptions, and then a recruiting plan. You probably also through the process will have developed a series of strategies and actions for around, you know, attraction, retention, recruiting that you're going to need to implement. I hope you found the process useful. If you have any questions at all, please contact me, and I'm happy to work with you to refine your plan and overcome some of the obstacles you may have run into. Thank you very much for participating in this training program. I hope it's been of value to you, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.